We're back. Let me get right back into it, James. And folks, let me express this. James does not know the questions I'm asking him. In other words, he is not being pre-screened at all. I'm hitting him cold turkey just like I do Dr. Cummings. That's the only way I'll agree to do an interview is we don't play games with the questions or the answers. So
Good.
I want you to understand that he has not been pre-screened on these questions.
Uh,
James, I've heard over television and radio and newspaper articles that I've read that a massive drug bust has just been uncovered, and it took 3.5 years of putting all this together to get the final end. And my question on something like that is, when somebody says that, I read this happened up in New York where they said it took 3.5 years to finally get, and something like 500 people were arrested. Or when they say it took 3.5 years, are they watching these people for 3.5 years and letting them go out in the community and still cause damage during that 3.5 years without arresting them to get them at one time at the end? Or are they, how does that work? I don't know what they're talking about there. Explain that to me.
A spectrum like that is so far beyond the scope of what we deal with in Tippah County. To give you an idea, about the second year I was in office, I was made aware of an individual or a group of individuals that were dealing meth, and because of some of the things that were involved in the case, and I was able to get the FBI involved and DEA folks involved, along with the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. Now, over a course of 6 months, and of course this made me chomp at the bits, and one of my shortcomings is I don't have patience when it comes to something like that. I want to go knock their door down and take them to jail. But over the course of 6 months, just to give you an idea, the DEA, Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, and the FBI bought somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 worth of meth off this individual in his little scope of group of people that he was dealing with. And the reason that I held off and let them do what he was doing was because the majority of his activity was not being done in Tippah County. We already had identified the ones that his primaries that he was selling to here in Tippah County. And the reason they wanted to do that, they wanted to lock this individual in, and it helped them. As a matter of fact, I retired some of the charges I had on the man because he helped the federal people make arrests in other states. And when you go to looking at someone here in our county that's allowing the federal government to make arrests in 3 to 6 states, you've got to look at, it's a tough call. You got to look at
It's the overall picture.
the overall picture of how much good can we do for the country versus what can we do for the county. And what we did, I played it pretty close to the chest. I didn't let a lot of people in the department. I think there might have been one other individual that knew what I was doing. Backed off, and when they finally did make their arrest, it pretty much curtailed that. And once again, I do things a little differently, and I make some of the people at MBN mad at me. I made people in DEA, FBI mad at me. If we got a local individual that's involved in trafficking, sometimes, folks, there might be a reason why they're doing that. And whatever the reason, it's wrong. I have gone to individuals that I knew were dealing and didn't have enough evidence at that point in time to arrest them, and I have told them to their face, this is what you're doing, this is how you're doing it. I'm going to give you, in 30 days' time, I'm going to have enough information to put you in the penitentiary if you don't stop what you're doing. Now, a lot of people didn't agree with that, and I did that for a reason. These are people in our county that have got caught up in, and once again, there is no excuse for anyone selling drugs to anybody, but they've got caught up in things that were beyond their control, and sometimes they get caught up with the wrong people, and they can't get out of it. But a case like you were talking about is just so broad and over such a wide area. I would venture to say that thing was probably involved coast to coast and probably South America also.
Yeah, it was huge.
Oh, yeah.
500 people got.
Yeah, and when you get a player that big, it's been a while since we had a player that big busted in Tippah County. But we have people that try to achieve that goal. And it's like I was telling some young folks the other night. Well, as a matter of fact, it was after the 4th of July speaking. I was home unloading all my stuff. It was about 11 o'clock at night, after that big 4th of July celebration we had down here at Ripley. A couple of young men came by, and I had about a cooler full of Gatorade left, and we sat there and drank that Gatorade. And I got off into talking to them. They were telling me about relatives that they had that were involved in the drug trafficking arena. And well, my cousin, he's only got involved in it because he's trying to support his family. And I said, now fellas, that just don't hold water. I've had a job since I was 12 years old. A lot of times I didn't have the jobs that I wanted, but I've always supported my family, and I've never sold drugs, and I've never stole anything. If you want to get up off your hind end and do something and make a living, you can do it. If you fall into that trap about I'm going to sell drugs to support my family, that's a lie that you're telling yourself. And the second thing I discussed with those young men is no matter who you are, you get involved in dealing drugs, you get involved in selling drugs, even if you are fortunate enough not to be caught here, you're going to have to stand before your God just like I am, and you're going to have to answer for all the lives that you destroyed. Maybe you didn't see them when you sold that 8-ball, but you're going to have to answer for every life that you touch and you destroy. And another thing, I've never known of a retired drug dealer. I've never known of a drug dealer when he was put in the ground that had a U-Haul trailer hook behind him going to the graveyard. And that's
Carrying all that money.
That's just the way I look at it. That's the way I feel about it.
Okay, that kind of answered my question. Thank you for that. Because I wondered, a lot of damage could be done while you're waiting on the
Absolutely.
500. But anyway, that brings up, and we've got about 6 to 8 minutes left. And so that brings up kind of another subject that you hit on at the speakings, was the fact that we're getting our highway going down the middle. We got one up north, one up south, and then one going right down the gut. Gangs. Do you foresee that as being a problem in Tippah County, and what, under your administration, can the Sheriff's Department do to prevent gang warfare and stuff like that in Tippah County?
Well, what lets something like that get a toehold is the same kind of mindset that lets some of our smart young people get addicted to crack cocaine or crystal methamphetamine. We sit around and say it can't happen here. We've got a lot of good young people that would be smart about things like that, but at the same time, the people that have got to be dealing with those type of folks have got to have their eyes open, their ears open. They've got to have communication with the various groups within the communities. We don't need gang-related activities in Tippah County. We've got enough problems with these individuals that are trying to destroy our young people with drugs. But yes, there's a very good danger of that happening here. It goes back to the mindset of wanting to go along and be with the cool crowd. And a lot of your folks that get involved with that, it goes back to what I was talking about having activities for our young people. Why I feel it's so important that we have something going on, such as a skating rink or a bowling alley or video arcade, and have that place ran by a group, and it might even be somebody appointed by the county to oversee that and be sure that we don't have that type of activity going on. The majority of our county is rural, and you're not going to have a lot of gang activity located in the rural communities, but we've also got Ripley, and Ripley would be right for some of these little nickel-dime think they're going to be gang wannabes. But that goes back to, once again, your sheriff has got to be proactive, his department's got to be proactive. Proactive meaning they've got to be out there, they've got to be interacting with the community, they've got to be talking to our community leaders and see what's going on with our young folks.
Okay, we've got about 4 minutes left. Let me ask, before closing remark, I would like to understand your efforts along the line of hiring deputies. How does that work? I don't know how that works.
Well, when I took office before, everybody said that, if James gets elected, you're going to fire, but I didn't fire anybody. Never did fire anybody. Well, I take that back. I did fire one individual, but that was someone that I had hired, and that was my mistake. I have a program for anyone new that we're going to bring into the Sheriff's Department. I would like to see them work in the jail for a couple of weeks to see what the jailers are going through and what their responsibilities are after someone brings someone into the jail. I'd like to see them work in the dispatch office for a couple of weeks to where they can see what the dispatchers are doing on that other end of the radio. And then I would like to have them shadow me around through the county for a couple of weeks. I feel that it's a long process. Number one qualification is they got to be a citizen of Tippah County. I'm not going to hire anybody. I'm not saying I'm replacing anybody, but I'm not going to hire anybody into the Sheriff's Department that doesn't live in Tippah County. I want officers and dispatchers and jailers that are working here in Tippah County to be from Tippah County. That way they will have some interaction, some knowledge, background about the individuals we come into contact with on a daily basis. We've got to remember, even if we're in law enforcement and we're wearing a badge, these are our neighbors, and I want it to be that way. I want us to never forget that these are our neighbors that are having these problems or these issues. These are our neighbors that are involved in these horrific things. And I think that's best done with individuals that are from Tippah County, that were raised up here with folks from Tippah County. Now, I've got a lot of ideas about things that I'm going to do differently versus how I did things the last time. But I think if folks will just take the time and look at the accomplishments, once again, the facts, don't deal with the I heard or they said, look at the facts. Look at what we've done as a sheriff's department with me as your sheriff for those 4 years. I just want to remind the citizens that once again, if you get tired of what's going on or you're not happy with what's going on, folks, if you don't vote, you ain't got no leg to stand on as far as complaining. We got over 7,000 people that didn't vote, and that's what I'm trying to get across to everybody. Leave and let I heard and they said by the wayside. Deal with the facts. Don't let that small group sway you, control you, tell you lies, and not get you to vote. On November the 8th, what we do November 8th is going to decide what happens with our county for the next 4 years. I'm asking you once again, take advantage of that experience that I had. I didn't stand in the potato line for 20 years in the United States Army. I was in a position of leadership from the time I was 18 until I retired in 1992. Take advantage of that. Look at the hard facts of what we accomplished while I was your sheriff. Once again, remember, I didn't have any unsolved crimes when I left office. I had a great department. We had a fleet of patrol cars. We had people certified, and just go back to the polls, folks. Get the guy that you know can do the job, the guy that you know loves Tippah County, the guy that you know will stand up for you and be there when you call and you need him.
On November the 8th.
November the 8th.
Okay, we'll look forward to November the 8th.